All right, good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you're at in the world. The focus on this stream is going to be talking about some of the things that I've done recently with the Pokemon Reinforcement Learning project. I had tried to switch over to Pufferlib, which requires using Ubuntu or Mac OS. So since I'm on Windows, I had to do a bunch of work to transition to that. And then what actually ended up happening is I ran a few iterations overnight and came back to basically it not doing anything. It would seem like it would still be running because there's no explicit error message that was being generated. I was saving all the results here. But what you can see is towards the end of just about every run, there's a sudden drop in the steps per second. And then we would stop seeing progress here. So on the last iteration of the most recent one, it dropped to 26 from being in like the 700 range, 600-700 range, to all of a sudden not performing. And then once I dug into this a little bit more, essentially what I had found out was that if I go down here into system, we were running out of memory. It doesn't explicitly give you an error when that's happening, and you can see like everything seems fine. But then here, process memory available, it just over time as it's running decreases over and over again until it eventually drops out. The first iteration here was the one that had done pretty well overall, but then eventually it ran out of resources. Each of these had gone 10 plus hours before encountering this, and then because there's no checkpointing in this version, that you can't basically resume where you had picked up, or you can't resume and pick up where you had left off. So what was happening is these would run for long hours. We're talking, like I said, in that 10, one was 18 hours range, and then completing anywhere like 20 to 30 million steps. If we go back up here, you can see here, like they're not small amounts of progress that they were achieving in that amount of time, right? Because just the amount it's completing per second is so much higher than what I can get by running the stable baselines version of it, that it was getting much more progress overall. And then I pulled these out here at the bottom just to give you an idea of how far they were making it in the game. So the steps here are actually the number of epochs that it completed here. Each one is about 2,000 steps. So you can see here we're getting to the getting everybody through the Brocktrim pretty reliably in that almost about halfway, so about the 15 to 16 million step mark. We would get through there, and then a lot of them were having success with even getting to Misty. This one was the best performant of them. This is the second iteration that I had run here, and almost all of them had gotten to Misty. That was about the 75% of them. We had 24 running at a time while these were going, and then this is the last one that had gotten the farthest in terms of the overall amount of steps, and it was about 50% were getting to completing Misty. But then it never really progressed further. Didn't make it a surge, didn't complete the SSN. A fair amount in this run were still stuck in the Mount Moon area there. Another difference here is that these runs started with Bulbasaur instead of Squirtle as the starter. And that helps to lead to it. There were a few differences overall in the code that I think allowed it to make more overall progress. But because just not being able to save and continue where it had left off, essentially it had completed over 100 million steps. And it was 100 million steps over the 4 runs, so about 4 days total of running. And reliably getting to Misty, but we really couldn't get much further just because the limitations of the laptop that I have cause it to run out. So you can see just from when the process starts and activates all the instances, I have between 3 to 5 gigs of memory left. And then over time, as we're going here, it ends up falling out completely to using up all the memory. And then there's no real error here. This one, I hadn't realized that I had started this one in the afternoon. Before I went to bed, everything was fine. And then not long after, it just completely crashed out to where it could not complete its training cycle, and it would just sit there. So it would not provide an error message when these happened. Essentially, it was sitting there waiting for the run to finish, but it would run out of memory and not complete it. So then it just ends up hanging for all these steps. So even if I wanted to save it, it would need to be checking certain points in time, probably based on the number of epochs, to go through and to create the checkpoint. But Pufferlib is not set up that way to resume it, so it would not pick up where it would left off. And so we end up basically just running out of resources. And so I've transitioned back to using the stable baselines version. I had one running since yesterday that ran here. We're talking, it just finished, or not just finished, it was about halfway through the next cycle. It's at 26 million steps, but it hadn't beaten any of the gyms over time. I'll scroll back here just to get the log here. It started figuring out leveling up Pokemon is a good thing. I had not obtained many events, a large amount of deaths relative to it. And you can tell like 4, 5, 6, there even 10. There shouldn't be that many, considering it had not really made it outside of Pallet Town. It did reliably learn to capture a few Pokemon, and then this was something new that I had put in here, was putting a very small reward for going into the menus. But you can see here, it's spending a lot of time looking at the Pokedex now instead of progressing through. And then this one was, going in using the inventory and then looking at the map to kind of get an idea where it is, and then moving around the map. So it's no longer moving around the playing map and progressing here. And you can see, like I said, each of them, they get a few levels, even capture some Pokemon, but that's really it. So there's no real progress. In the previous iterations that I had by the 20 million step mark, we were already beating Brock reliably for all the instances. And then, the progression was to try and get to Mount Moon here. So we've seen a regression in performance overall. And so I'll go here. And I only have 16 instances running while I'm doing this. It's going to run for about 400,000 total steps when it does these. But the biggest issue that I was running into, which is that we weren't really getting good results. This was the one that had successfully made it to Brock in a short amount of time, and even to Misty here. I ran this one just from scratch to see if we had any progress, and with the change into the scoring formula, I just wanted to start over and see if we got more progress here. But the nice thing about the checkpointing is I can refer back to this one, and we should see progression overall. So this was from a previous instance. This is my cerulean checkpoint here, and then some of the key changes for this one. If I go down here, so I had changed it. I had increased the event rewards from 2 times to 4 times. Doesn't seem like that had done as much as we wanted. The level rewards I had adjusted, so it went from 1 time to, sorry, it was going from 2 times the level rewards to just 1 time. And you can see here, there's actually one that had done a really strong job of leveling up some of the Pokemon. I shouldn't say one, there's a few that done a good job there. So likely over time we'd see more there. Just not getting enough out of the event side of things. And then also the exploration scores were really low. So it's not really leaving the Pallet Town area and starting to accrue some of the other rewards here. You can see here, for some reason, the scene is 1, but that should be higher given that it captured multiple Pokemon here. So let's go look at that, because that should not have changed considerably. So I'm looking here. I mean, I can take these away. It's just the starters because it starts with having seen each one of them, and then it gives you a point for having your starter there. Again, these don't particularly matter. You're just going to, as soon as the game state loads, have those in there. I'm just going to take those out so it's closer to what you're actually seeing here in the game. What else? So I changed this from, it was getting 2 times rewards for seeing Pokemon and 3 times reward for capturing. So I think it's worth it here to go ahead and increase this again to encourage it to get out there. Unfortunately, this may cause issues later in the game where instead of proceeding along, it's going to spend more time looking for Pokemon to start filling things out. What else was here? We took out the opponent's level reward here. This is for your rival. It really wasn't adding much, and it gets construed in with the other variables anyway. There's an event for fighting against your rival, and then you're also going to get levels from the battle anyway. That would, I guess, highly incentivize those. The level reward being linear, I think that's fine. This, I don't know. It shouldn't be too high overall. And then this menu, I guess let's just change this maybe to 1. Instead of 001, you should get those points right away at the beginning, and then learn that you're not really getting additional for those. So I put these in last time. What these are here. Basically, if you were to go into the menu, you get +1 here. Basically the same thing for going to stats, Pokemon, and the items. Surprising that this had not increased further, but it's a smaller reward compared to things like the things like actually exploring and doing the leveling. So maybe that's just part of the overall shift here. And then what else here? Session. Oh, this is the videos here as well. So if we wanted to look through and see basically everything it's doing across the run, you could load up one of these and it would show you here. So you can see it's gone through 6 full resets. And then just going through it and doing, or saving the videos for those. It's a fast version of it, so it'll get through it quickly. Whereas you can see, this was a version from the other night. They were hanging around a lot in the corner. So they weren't really progressing, which is when I put in the things for the menus. And then if I come here, it was another very similar thing. It was just looking and talking to the computers and sitting in corners. It wasn't really progressing. Whereas I think this was the one last time. Yeah, it had gotten to Mount Moon and then gotten stuck. And you can see here, there's even versions that are, I said 47 million total steps overall, and then continuing off of that if we wanted to get more iterations. So speaking with a couple of the other people that have used the PufferLib, one of the biggest things that I saw with those were that people were consistently using like server space, so they have a lot of RAM to throw at this issue, and then they don't have to worry about running out of memory on their instances. Whereas that's something that I've run into multiple times now. Let me see here. Hey Ash. So I'm still kind of at the same point. I'm trying to get back to reliably clearing Misty with the stable baselines version of it. When I use PufferLib, it did get to Misty a few times here. I can show that 1 dB measurement here where it's down here. It was getting to Misty fairly reliably, but then the instances that I had would run out of memory. And so we'd end up crashing out. And then there's no checkpointing for that, so we can't come back and resume progress from, let's say, this one here got into a good amount of getting them through Misty, start that checkpoint, continue the progress here. So back to building off the stable baseline versions, and I was talking through some of the changes that I was trying to incorporate here. So I tried to give it a very small reward for spending a lot of time in the menus. So the start menu, the status menu, the Pokemon menu, and the item menus. If it uses the items to heal, it shouldn't. This shouldn't be too much of a negative penalty. It's just a very, very small incremental increase for doing these. But looking at this here, the menu rewards are still showing 0. So there may be an issue with how I put this together in terms of its overall progress. And then this was about the 20 million step marks. Seeing Pokemon is only 1, which does not make sense because we have screenshots showing that they have multiple Pokemon in their party. So you would at least have the starter Pokemon, but they have like Rattatas in there that they've captured. One, a couple of these have 2 captured Pokemon, so not counting the starter. So it should have 2 unique captured Pokemon. So let's just say it has Rattata and Pidgey. Well, that means that scene has to be higher than 1. So I think there's a few things going on here that aren't necessarily playing right. But I did not change how the scene score works. It's just going through everything in the Pokedex and adding them here. I removed, because I had said, like, take the 3 starter Pokemon out and have that here. Do you have a way to know if the agent is talking with someone? Other than looking at the screenshots, no. But there was one here, at least I haven't figured out, probably because you would have to have it check for each individual NPC in the game to see if it's talking with them. But you can see here, this version, it was spending a lot of time in the menus and then talking to people around town. I didn't let this one get very far. Basically just completed 1 trading iteration. And so that's kind of to be expected. At the beginning of the game, I was just trying to figure out what to do when moving around. This was another iteration. It hadn't even completed its first one, but it looked like it was getting stuck in the corner. So I wanted to make some changes before resuming that. And so this was the first one, and then this was the second one later that evening. There's another one here that had gotten fairly decent progress for like 2 of the instances, but not the majority of them. So a few of them were still looking around in the starter area, and then one had the War Turtle, and then another one had like a Pidgeotto. So it seemed like it was starting to figure things out. And then these are the sessions prior to using Pufferlib. That's what you're currently looking for, trying to get away from image processing. Yeah, it's hard without having a full memory map of everything in the game to know what exactly interactions are happening at the time. So I had found this in someone else's code that had done a similar thing, and then I just brought it over to mine. So this is supposed to be the structure of going through the menus here and checking it. And then, like I said, it's supposed to add to the score, but I don't believe it's working correctly because when I look here, in the scoring, I don't see anything going there. It should just be a straight count and then an increment each time these happen. So I don't even know if I have fully set this up correctly for the menus. And this isn't going to do anything because I have stopped the training for now. So let's see here. Yeah, so there's a check before this. So where is read bit in their code? So it comes from their RAM map code. Let's see here. So their read bit should be very similar to read M here. Read M is just that we're reading the memory here. Those are the coordinates. And then this is their read bit. Maybe I'm doing that incorrectly. Start. So start menu goes and checks the memory values to make sure that they matter. So that's the same as using read M. And then if read memory comes back, but there's an additional one here. So I think it's just I'm missing one piece to the code. D057, I only know about, and you use it to know if I'm exploring or in battle or wild versus the trainer. Do I use D0? Well, that's, yeah, this is the first one. So exploring, yeah. So there's, I think this is one more where, there's one more missing here where it's a trainer. So these are the start menu values. So this is checking if you're in the wild. And then these ones are the final levels for this, for the menus. So if you're in this chain and then this bit value is 0, yeah. This one is detecting which of the menus that you are in. So this is your map, I believe, and this is the, if you've pulled up the main menu, and then I'm not sure what this one is, and it's not always reliable. And then this is the sub menu here. So the 0 here is the start menu. The 1 is the status menu. 2 is the Pokemon, and then this is the items. But then it's not always reliable for this for some reason to know if that matches up. But the idea here is just to reward it one time for going into the menus and then stop after that, so it doesn't continue going to the menu over and over again. But it says that there is an additional bit here that maybe I just haven't included, because it checks this in another. So save that, and let's see. Interesting. So it's saying that this is related to the SSN. So I'm not sure why that's valuable. CC. $206. Let me share this with you. This is the main RAM map that I use for looking things up to get an idea of where things are. Let's see, 057. Okay, so 057 is checking that you're not in battle. 803 is it has the SSN arrived. CF13. It's not showing in mine. FFRC. Not showing there as well. I'm not fully sure what those are. Okay. So I'm going to guess those are other menu values then. CF13. So these are in order. CC, CD, CE is just skipped over. CF, yeah, CF13 is not showing here at all. And it goes into D's. Now what's the last one here? CF94. Yeah, it's not specifically listed here either. Yeah, There's no nobody's laid out anything related to those. Focus on making the code work for tomorrow's crystal stream. And maybe I'll get into checking about talking and menu things. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for the purpose of a agent, if you can teach it to not talk, it's fine. Because that will increase the number of overall actions. You will lose out on a few things. That happened because of that. So for example, getting the Magikarp, if it's not talking to people, it won't necessarily do that. Or I guess it won't do that reliably, but I don't know if we can limit some of the actions that the agent takes. But that would be worthwhile to do. So, but the idea here was to increase it slightly every time it does the menu. I guess I can just set these to flat values. So I think I'll leave this. Another idea here is that we need to check, because if this value is already 1, and we're only ever setting it one time, then there's no need to go through to do the aim is not to talk, to talk to people. It will give it the reward. And then in the talking the first guy given portion versus talking to the researcher in Oak Lab. Yeah, so as long as it doesn't learn along the way, because it would eventually stop trying, depending on how you set it up, right? So you have to be careful there, where if you stop giving it reward for talking to people, it may no longer try doing so, or it may just learn the specific people that are worthwhile to talk to. So it's more something to keep in mind than it being something that I think will be a blocker. So we'll go here. And then another thing I figured out, were a lot of the event flags, but those are already saved. You don't have to do anything for those. And then I've been saving the video files to go through here. So if you don't need to save the individual screenshots. I got out of memory when I was using the Puffer lib version, which I had set it to run for 50 million steps. And around the 25, well, on the best case, I got to 25 million. The other ones were anywhere between 10 to 18 million steps. It would run out of memory, and then it would hang and no longer progress. So the challenge with Puffer lib is that it does not do the checkpoint that this one does. And so you can't resume progress on a run like you can with this one. So then it would run for 10 to 18 hours, crash out, and then I basically have to start all over again. And since I only have the 8 total gigs of RAM here, it's a constraint on the for the computer itself more than anything else. And I don't have an option at the moment to really upgrade what I'm working with. So I guess I can wait a week or two, see how Black Friday comes around, and see if I can fix that problem. But at least for now, I can at least, like I said, go back to using the stable baselines and try and see if there's getting anything going here. And this will kind of mostly run in the background while I've got other things going on. Another thing that I figured out here was making the adjustment to the stream wrapper for appearing on the map. That was just so I can check in progress. Basically, when I had set it to doing the doing the model updates every 1,000 steps, this was originally set to 300. which meant that like 70% of the time would be what I'm appearing on the map plus the training time. So it was like 50-50 that I was actually appearing on the map. So you can just reduce this. You can reduce the interval here from the initial upload, and then it'll run through all the steps there. So a couple small things here in terms of the overall progress. And then I wanted to see here, you told me about updating the headless so that we can do it. Yeah, it didn't go for... And then going for PPO. Okay, yeah, stable baselines is using the PPO that's down here. Model, and then like I started with this one just because it had already existed, and I was curious how it would go. And then we were making good progress in beating all the progress of other people and teams that have worked on this. So that's where I started there. And then I was like, well, I can transfer a lot of this over to Puffer Lib if I can figure it out. And then I spent basically a day and a half going through getting Ubuntu set up, and then getting everything set up and set up in the Ubuntu environment. So making sure like the GPU is working correctly, all that. And it seemed like it was going really well because I was getting a huge lift. The challenge with stable baselines is right now I get like 250-ish steps per second. And Puffer Lib was giving me like 700. So almost 2 to 3 times the training speed. That if I can get through the memory issue, it's so much faster to make the progress that it would have been worthwhile continuing that out. Where is MonDB? This should be true. Hit the limit of queue, getting below the... Yeah. Okay. You hit the limits of the queue learning and the table. Yeah. So that's one of the biggest challenges with the Pokemon Red, is because it's such a long running experiment to get through all the different processes in the game, right? Like it's such a long, almost context window that you have to be able to keep everything together in memory, which becomes some of the challenges here. And then if you want to think about it, a lot of other games, like you have stages. So like I know there was a project going on to have it beat Mario, or I've seen ones for like Super Meat Boy. And those are because you have the individual stages, it only needs to learn stage by stage by stage to get through. And so the context windows for those is much shorter. It's only that individual stage versus having to beat the entirety of the game to really get progress. But getting to Viridian Forest is already good progress there. And then hopefully, if you had more resources, you could get it at least to Brock. And then, yeah, it will blow very quickly. So I'm going to go here, MonDB. I want to set the entity and project up. Entity. I guess I have to make a new project, huh? Call this stable baselines. now this is called this. Let's see if I can get this off the ground and running. Yeah, wasn't that so? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Mario is definitely easier than Pokemon, and just because of the stage separations within the game, make it easier for you to create separation in the model itself. So like you can learn stage 1 and then go have it complete that, and then now it needs to learn stage 2. If there were more breaks within Pokemon, and theoretically you might be able to set it up, but because you always have the full map in terms of exploration, that creates the challenge. Where even if you started at Brock's Gym, it can go all the way back to the starting point of the game in Pallet Town, and so the whole map is still available to it, right? Whereas each of those stages are self-contained, and so you can do those individually. What you're doing to do my own Pokemon things, come back and check in a few days. Maybe you'll have some data. Yeah. And then I'll share out anything I find. Like I'm going to be doing this every, like probably twice a week, just doing this checkpoint on how we are progressing in terms of the Pokemon progress. And then I'll be picking up the project for the, because I only have the next couple weeks to work on it, which is the Kaggle Big Data Bowl. So hopefully I can kick this off. Let me make sure I saved everything. Let's see, there's an error here. It's because of this. Okay. Save that. Kick this off. Basically, I just want to see that the WAN-DB connections are working correctly. And then I'll switch this out. Okay. Yeah. Have a good evening. Have a good evening, Ash. And I'll see you another time. Yeah. That might be the new way of setting up now. Awesome. Looks like you're connected. The weights and biases, and we're off and running. Now, if we go here in a few moments, we should start appearing. Did I use the checkpoint or not? I don't believe so. Yeah, so we're starting here. We'll let this go for this evening just to see where we're progressing. Let's see, there's more and more people that have been working on the project recently. So adding overall progress here, and then hopefully we can see our instances start appearing shortly. So let's see. Capture is going to be 3. That's just a starter Pokemon that we have, and we're giving a unique value for, or we're giving it points for each unique captured Pokemon and each seen Pokemon. So each one seen in the Pokedex. So right now that's 6. That's probably because this one had gone. This one picks up not just from Professor Oak's after it selects the Pokemon, but I believe actually going and returning the his package to him. So let's see. Yeah, we're here. It may be challenging to keep this going. We will see because there's 16 instances running, I believe. Yeah, 16 instances running. Keeping this going simultaneously will be challenging for the computer itself, but I really just wanted to see if I had set everything up with OneDB, loading things correctly. So if I go here, do I show runs in the project now? Yes, we do. Okay. I'll clean up the name because that what is it here? Session. Yeah, let's just call it the same, the session ID. So I'll save that for future. It's been going, that's fine. It's really only showing system metrics. Okay. I guess I would have to put I have to put wrappers around it similar to the other ones just to see progress, but that's fine. Or at least proving out that it is running and working. So turn this off. It's still going to filter for me, but what I'll do is I'll leave this here running in the background while it's training. We can hopefully see it progressing. So I'll get things set up. And I'll be checking progress. After 8 p.m. So what I'll do is I'll bring this down for a moment. I'm going to switch it over to the machine learning version. So that way you can separate these videos in terms of what you see on YouTube. So if you want to follow development, you can use these. If you're seeing this and you have any ideas on what we can do to improve it, that would be great. But we're at least making progress again, at least being able to complete runs and build up checkpoints. So I'll go through, and what I'll do here, I'll take this, and instead of starting from 0, we are going to start from the last, the cerulean checkpoint that I had that had actually made it into cerulean forest, and see if we can get there and continue going through. So what I'll do now is, like I said, I'll bring this down. We're going to kick off this version here in a second. So go through, kill this. Boom. Perfect. Yeah, great. All right, so I'll bring this down and I'll be back online in a moment just for the